welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Bree, and on this channel, I like to share my experience with budgeting as well as other personal finance topics. And in this video, I'm going to be reviewing my May budget and going over things that I'm expecting to happen this month, some decisions that I have to make, and then some money mindset shifts that I'm trying to roll out this month as well. Let me know down in the comments if you can relate to any of these, or even if you've got some ideas, especially on some of the decisions that I'm looking to make this month. So when it comes to my budget for May, I am currently following the annual budget that I set up at the beginning of the year. This is a planning activity that I like to do every year, and it just takes all the expenses that I'm expecting to happen throughout the year and breaks it down into a monthly amount. I then use a budgeting app called YNAB, or You Need a Budget, to track all of my expenses and categorize them in all the categories that I've put in my annual budget. So for this month, no big changes to my annual budget for the most part. Now, I have had a couple of things shift, and I've actually gotten some margin back and lowered my needs percentage. So I'll be sharing more about that in a later video. But for the most part, things are staying the same. So for this month, the big activity that's happening is that I'm actually traveling out of state. I'm going to be visiting my family in Colorado and going to celebrate my sister's birthday. So I'm really excited, and that's actually coming up in a couple of days from now. And so part of my annual planning process is also putting together sinking funds. So I do have a travel sinking fund this year. In my budget, I am putting aside $183 a month, and that's going to cover the couple of trips that I had planned for this year. And if you'd like to see a video on how I put together my 20 sinking funds, I'll link it down below in the description. So when it comes to the sinking fund, specifically for this trip, I actually only budgeted $400, and that was for flights. Now, a big part of this is because at the beginning of the year, I knew that I was going to do two sort of traveling trips to see family this year. And then I kind of thought that I would have some extra money for a fun trip. Well, I ended up taking that fun trip over spring break where my daughter and I went to New York City for a couple of days with a friend and went and saw Broadway shows and got to experience that for the first time. And that trip went a little over, so I had to readjust my plan. And in that readjustment, I actually had to bring down how much I was going to spend going to Colorado. So for this trip to Colorado, I have $400 budgeted, and I've spent $330 on flights. I actually spent that money last month purchasing the flights. We're going to be flying Frontier, and that includes carry-on luggage and seat selection for us. So I felt like the price was pretty competitive, and I honestly was totally pleased with it and really happy how this trip's going to work out. So typically before I go on vacation, I usually put together a spreadsheet that goes over each day and each activity that's planned for that day. And I put together a budget for each activity so that I can get an idea of how much I'm going to spend overall for the trip and make sure that it's within my sinking fund amount for the year. Now, this trip's a little different. I didn't put a budget together, and I think it's really just because I'm going to see family. So I'm not really expecting to do any big activities. It's just going to be hanging out for the most part. And of course, I get to stay with them and eat their food. No, I will be going to the store to pick up some snacks for us. But overall, the costs for this trip, I'm not really expecting to go too high. Now, because I do have a little bit of margin this month, I'm probably going to take from that, maybe like $100 or so, just in case anything comes up. So that's going to give me maybe about $170 of spending money for my daughter and I. So I think really, as long as I don't go overboard, I think that'll be enough to get us by. The trip is only going to be like Friday to Tuesday, so it's just kind of a quick weekend getaway to see everyone. The next thing that's happening this month is I'm actually getting my third paycheck. Now, when I was doing my annual planning, I had mentioned that I get paid bi-weekly, which means that 2 months out of the year, I get an extra paycheck. And so I put that immediately towards a savings goal that I have, which right now is bulking up my emergency fund. So the original plan at the beginning of the year was to use this extra paycheck to go straight into my emergency fund. I currently have about 2 months in my emergency fund, and this would bump it up to 2.5. But I've also had something else on my mind lately, and I'm trying to decide what to move forward with. So, about this time last year, I had actually been talking to an estate planning attorney, and I had gotten a quote for putting together a will and a trust. And with having a daughter, this is really important to me, especially just setting things up just in case the worst happens. And unfortunately, I had the money last year when I was speaking to the estate attorney. Just due to some unexpected emergency events, I had to deplete my emergency fund. And so I no longer had the money to pay for those services. And it's kind of been eating at me ever since because it is something that's really important to me and something that I want to get in place so that those things are handled. And so I was almost considering using this paycheck to move forward with that process. Now, of course, the paycheck I'm getting doesn't cover the full amount, but I did get a tax refund. And so that with my extra paycheck would be enough to pay for these services. So I've really been trying to debate what is more urgent and important, whether getting my estate plan put together so that I can be at ease knowing that my daughter's taken care of in case something were to happen to me, or getting us ahead on our emergency fund. And so this kind of leans into the next topic for this month, and that's just my money mindset. I feel like rebuilding my emergency fund is taking much longer than I would like it to. Now, I will admit, I probably irresponsibly am still investing more than I am putting towards my emergency savings. And a big part of that is because I just feel like when I hit my investing goals, I know that that money is like going to work and doing good things for me in my future. And so, my big worry around decreasing my investing percentage is spending that money and not being responsible. And what's the word? I can't think of the word right now. I'm just worried that I will sort of relax knowing that there's a little bit of money coming in. And even though it's supposed to go to my emergency fund, I could totally see myself kind of getting, I guess you could say, like loosening the reins in my budget and potentially overspending. And that is like a big reason why I just won't touch my investing percentage. So, because of that, I've been kind of rethinking my budget, thinking about how I could be more intentional with my spending and not spending everything that's in a category just because I assigned a dollar amount to it. A good example of this would be like my groceries. I currently budget $600 a month or $150 a week. And I started to think about what if I just didn't spend $150 and actually did some more intentional grocery shopping? I know that if I really leaned out my grocery shopping week to week, I could get that bill down to about 100 to 120, which over the month could result in a bit of savings. Same with like my free spending money that I have for myself. That's another category where I think like just because I give myself money in that category doesn't necessarily mean I should spend it all. So I think this month I really want to explore being a little bit more intentional with my spending. I'm still trying to figure out what that means though, and when to say yes and when to say no. So if you've got any feedback, I would love to hear it. I'm also thinking about implementing some more no spend weeks or no spend weekends to kind of slow down my spending speed. Well, so I'll be honest, I've never done a no spend month, so I don't have a ton of experience in participating in something like that. So for me, it feels like that would be a really big stretch, but I was kind of thinking I could totally handle a no spend week or a no spend weekend. And I say weekend just because I really don't go out Monday through Thursday. So I don't do a ton of spending during the actual week. It's always the weekends that kind of get me. So I was kind of thinking, what if I picked 2 weekends out of the month, where I really just lounge around the house or I work on a project, which this year's actually a big year for decluttering for me. So I could just spend a weekend focusing on that or even picking up a new hobby. I've been wanting to get into scrapbooking and haven't made any time to do it. I was kind of thinking of taking these slow weekends and maybe leaning into that. I have all the supplies for it because I already bought it. I just haven't made the time for it. So, these are kind of some of the thoughts that I've been thinking of trying this month to slow down all of my spending. So, that is everything for May. I'm excited to be traveling this weekend, and I'll definitely be thinking a lot about that decision on how I want to spend my extra paycheck. I'd love to hear what your plans are for this month and any tips or strategies you might have on intentional spending. Let me know down in the comments, and I look forward to the next video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye!